Hae-yun Park was having a normal morning until she wasn't. She stood in her son's bedroom doorway, holding a cup of coffee that was getting cold. The room was empty. This wasn't unusual. Her 16-year-old son Taiwan often went to the colony's library early to study. But something felt wrong. The bed wasn't made, which was strange because Taiwan always made his bed. He had done so since he was 6 years old, saying that an organized room leads to an organized mind. Hae-yun had laughed then, wondering how her young son had become such a serious child. She walked into the room, her slippers making soft sounds on the metal floor of their home in the New Seoul space colony. Everything else was in its proper place. His study materials were neatly arranged on his desk. His favorite blue sweater hung on the chair. His computer was turned off. That's when she noticed it. The small silver disc, the ancient alien artifact Taiwan had been studying, was missing from its special case on the shelf. Hae-yun put down her coffee cup and pulled out her phone. She called Taiwan's number. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. She sent a message. "Where are you?" No reply. Her heart began to beat faster. She opened the colony's security app on her phone and checked Taiwan's location chip. The screen showed an error message. Signal not found. That was impossible. The chips worked everywhere in the colony. Unless. Hae-yun ran to her computer terminal and accessed the colony's security network. As the head of quantum research at the New Seoul Science Institute, she had high-level access to most systems. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she searched through the security logs. The night camera showed something that made her blood run cold. At 3:47 a.m., an unregistered ship had docked at Port 9, a restricted maintenance dock that wasn't supposed to be in use. The footage showed 3 figures in dark suits entering the colony. At 4:12 a.m., they returned to their ship, carrying something large wrapped in what looked like a blanket. "Computer, enhance image sector 7B," Hae-yun commanded. The screen zoomed in on the wrapped bundle. A hand was visible, hanging limply. A hand wearing the silver ring Hae-yun had given Taiwan for his 16th birthday. The coffee cup shattered on the floor. Hae-yun didn't notice. She ran to her bedroom and pulled out the emergency bag she always kept packed, a habit from her days working on dangerous quantum experiments. She changed quickly into her work suit, the smart fabric adjusting to her body temperature. "Computer, send emergency alert to colony security. Priority level 1. Authorization Park, Alpha 79, she said as she strapped on her utility belt. "Alert sent," the computer responded. "Security forces will arrive in approximately 17 minutes. Hae-yun laughed, but there was no humor in it. In 17 minutes, that ship could be halfway to the Centauri system. She grabbed her research tablet and headed for the door. The hallways of the residential section were quiet. Most people were still asleep. Hae-yun's footsteps echoed as she ran toward the science wing of the colony. Her mind was racing faster than her feet. Who would take Taiwan? And why? Was it because of the artifact he'd been studying? Or because of her own research? She had enemies. Every successful scientist did, but none who would go this far. Would they? She reached the quantum research lab and pressed her hand against the security panel. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Lights on," she commanded as she entered. The lab came to life, holographic displays activating around her. She went straight to the secure storage unit at the back of the lab. "Computer, open Project Phoenix files. Authorization Park final override." "Warning," the computer responded. "Project Phoenix is classified level Ultra. Opening these files will trigger an automatic alert to colony administration. Override alerts. Emergency Protocol 7. The storage unit's shield shimmed and disappeared. Inside was a single device, something that looked like a simple silver bracelet. Project Phoenix, her personal research project that even the colony administration didn't fully know about. Hae-yun picked up the bracelet and slipped it onto her wrist. It adjusted automatically, connecting to her neural patterns. A soft blue light pulsed along its surface. "Dr. Park," a voice called from the doorway. She turned to see Yum-Ho, her research assistant, standing there looking confused. "What are you doing here so early? And why is there an emergency alert?" "Yum-Ho," Hei-Yun interrupted, "I need you to do something for me. In exactly 1 hour, send all my recent research data to Professor Sunmai at the Lunar Science Academy. Everything about quantum tunneling and spatial displacement. Can you do that?" "Of course, but..." "Good." Hei-Yun walked past him, then paused. "And if anyone asks where I've gone, tell them." She thought for a moment. Tell them a mother's work is never done. She headed for the colony's spacecraft bay. The experimental research vessel, the one they used for quantum field tests, was stored there. It wasn't strictly meant for long-distance travel, but it had the most advanced navigation and tracking systems in the colony. The bay was deserted when she arrived. Perfect. She approached the sleek silver ship, shaped like a water droplet. As she got closer, her bracelet glowed brighter. "Computer, prepare ship for launch. Authorization." "Dr. Park," a stern voice called out. She turned to see Commander Lee of Colony Security approaching with 4 armed officers. "Step away from the vessel. We need to discuss the alert you sent and follow proper procedures." Hei-Yun looked at the commander, then at the ship, then back at the commander. She thought about proper procedures. She thought about 17-minute response times. She thought about her son, somewhere out there in the vastness of space. The bracelet on her wrist pulsed once. What happened next would later be described by Commander Lee as a violation of at least 15 colony regulations and possibly several laws of physics. The security footage would show Dr. Hei-Yun Park seemingly stepping sideways through space, appearing instantly inside the ship's cockpit. "I apologize for what I'm about to do." Hei-Yun's voice came through the ship's speakers. "Please send the repair bill to my home address." The ship's engines powered up with a deep hum. Commander Lee and his officers raised their weapons. "This is your final warning, Dr. Park." "No," Hei-Yun said as she activated the quantum drive. "This is yours. A piece of advice, Commander. Never stand between a mother and her child." The ship rose smoothly from its dock. The bay doors were sealed, but Hei-Yun wasn't worried. She had, after all, designed the quantum tunneling system she was wearing. The ship shimmered, its hull taking on a blue glow similar to her bracelet. Then it simply passed through the solid metal of the bay doors, leaving behind 5 stunned security officers and 1 very interesting incident report to file. In orbit above the colony, Hei-Yun activated the ship's tracking systems. The kidnappers' vessel had left an ion trail. Faint, but detectable to her enhanced sensors. She plotted its course and felt her heart sink. They were headed toward the Centauri system. The Centauri system was notorious for its ongoing civil war between 2 alien factions. It was exactly the kind of place someone would go if they didn't want to be followed. Hei-Yun checked her ship's quantum reserves. The experimental drive would get her there faster than any normal ship, but it would still take time. Time during which anything could happen to Taiwan. She thought about her quiet, brilliant son who still made his bed every morning, who had been so excited about studying that alien artifact, who had her determination and his father's curiosity, a combination that had always made her both proud and worried. "Hold on, Taiwan," she whispered as she engaged the quantum drive. "Mom's coming." The stars blurred around her ship as it accelerated to impossible speeds. In the cockpit, Hei-Yun Park, respected scientist, single mother, and now possibly the first person to commit grand theft spacecraft using quantum tunneling technology, began to plan. She had no military training, no combat experience, no real plan beyond find Taiwan. But she did have an advanced degree in quantum physics, experimental technology that shouldn't technically exist yet, and the kind of focused determination that only comes from being a mother whose child is in danger. As her ship streaked toward the Centauri system, Hei-Yun smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to demonstrate why "Mother knows best" isn't just a saying, it's a warning. The kidnappers had made 3 serious mistakes. They had taken her son. They had taken him while he was in her care. And most importantly, they had made her miss her morning coffee. Someone was going to regret this very, very much. Hei-yun's ship dropped out of quantum speed at the edge of the Centauri system. Her sensors immediately lit up with warnings. Dozens of ships were fighting ahead of her, energy weapons flashing in the darkness of space. She checked her tracking system. The kidnappers' ion trail led straight through the middle of the battle. Of course it did. "Computer, identify the fighting ships," she said, rubbing her temples. She really missed her morning coffee. 2 distinct fleet signatures detected. The computer replied. The Blue Scale Alliance and the Crystal Claw Federation. They have been engaged in civil war for approximately 7 years. Hei-yun watched as the alien ships danced around each other, firing weapons that lit up space like fireworks. Both sides seemed to be using similar technology, and neither seemed to be winning. "Like children fighting over a toy," she muttered. Then she straightened in her chair. "Computer, open a broadcast channel to both fleets. Warning: entering broadcast range will expose this vessel to potential hostile action. Just do it." The computer beeped, and Hei-yun cleared her throat. "This is Dr. Hei-yun Park of the New Seoul Space Colony. I need to pass through your battle zone. And I'm in a hurry. So you have 2 options." She watched as several ships turned toward her position. Option 1. You can all move aside and let me through. Option 2. I can show you exactly why quantum physics is more dangerous than any weapon you're currently using. Her ship's sensors registered multiple targeting locks. Hei-yun sighed. "Computer, activate Project Phoenix, wide field mode." The bracelet on her wrist glowed bright blue. A wave of quantum energy spread out from her ship, washing over the nearest alien vessels. When it touched them, they shifted. Not far, just about half a kilometer to the left. But for massive warships moving at high speeds, this small displacement was enough to throw off their entire formation. The alien ships scrambled to recover, their crews probably trying to understand what had just happened. Hei-yun opened the channel again. "That was a warning shot. The next time, I might displace you into next week. Literally. Now, is anyone ready to talk?" Her computer screen lit up with incoming transmission requests. She picked the one marked Supreme Commander from each fleet. 2 alien faces appeared on her screen. On the left was Admiral Bora of the Blue Scales, who looked like a cross between a dragon and a chess piece. On the right was High Commander Jin of the Crystal Claws, whose crystalline features caught the light of nearby stars. "Who dares?" They both began at the same time, then glared at each other. "No," Hei-yun interrupted. "We're not doing that. I'm looking for my son, and your little war is in my way. So here's what's going to happen." She pulled up an image of Taiwan on her screen. This is him. 16 years old, quiet, probably carrying an alien artifact. Have either of you seen a ship carrying him pass through here? The alien commanders looked at each other, then back at her. "We may have detected such a vessel," Admiral Bora said slowly. "It passed through our sector 3 hours ago." "Impossible." Commander Jin cut in. "That ship clearly passed through our territory. It was our sector. It was ours." Hei-yun slammed her hand on her console. The sound made both alien commanders jump. "Are you seriously arguing about this right now? What is wrong with you two?" The aliens fell silent, looking surprisingly sheepish for beings that commanded massive war fleets. "Now," Hei-yun continued, her voice dangerously calm, "I want you both to tell me exactly what you saw. One at a time. Bora, you first. Jin, you will wait your turn." To her surprise, they complied. Both fleets had tracked the kidnapper's ship, but had been too busy fighting each other to investigate. The ship had headed toward the system's 3rd planet. "Thank you," Hei-yun said when they finished. Was that so hard? Now, about this war of yours. This conflict is about fundamental differences, Bora began. Ancient grievances, Jin added. Stop. Hei-yun held up her hand. What's the real reason? The alien commanders shifted uncomfortably. Finally, Bora spoke. They have been mining the quantum crystals in the Proxima Belt, which historically belonged to us, Jin interjected. Enough. Hei-yun pulled up the system's map on her screen. Show me these crystal deposits. They pointed out the locations. Hei-yun studied the map, her scientific mind quickly analyzing the problem. These crystal formations follow a quantum resonance pattern, she explained. They're not single deposits. They're part of a system-wide network. If you mine them carefully, there's more than enough energy for both your peoples. You just need to understand the pattern. She sent them a quick analysis she'd done. Both commanders studied it with growing interest. This could work, Bora said slowly. If we coordinated our mining efforts, Jin added. Exactly. Hei-yun nodded. Now here's what we're going to do. You're both going to call a ceasefire. Then you're going to help me find my son. After that, I'll help you set up a proper quantum crystal mining operation that benefits both sides. Deal. The commanders looked at each other again, but differently this time. Deal, they said together. Good. Hei-yun checked her ship's systems. Now, I need your fastest ships to join me. We have kidnappers to catch. Within an hour, Hei-yun found herself leading a joint task force of both Blue Scale and Crystal Claw ships. She had to admit, they were impressively efficient when they weren't trying to blow each other up. Admiral Park, her computer announced, the fleet awaits your orders. Admiral. Hei-yun looked confused. I'm not an admiral. Both fleets have temporarily combined under your command, the computer explained. By their military protocols, this grants you the rank of admiral. Hei-yun stared at the screen showing dozens of alien warships waiting for her command. This was not how she had expected her day to go when she woke up this morning. Fine, she said. Set course for the third planet. And someone please get me some coffee. It doesn't have to be Earth coffee. I'm desperate enough to try anything. As her new fleet moved out, Hei-yun received messages from both commanders. They had sent her their formal titles. She was now officially Admiral Park, the stern mother of Centauri, voice of reason, and quantum shifter of fates. Hei-yun just shook her head. Computer, send a message to colony security back home. Tell them I might be slightly delayed in returning their ship. Also, tell Yun-ho to water my plants. She looked at the star map, showing the kidnappers' trail leading to the third planet. They had a head start, but they didn't have an angry mother with quantum technology and a newly acquired alien fleet behind them. Hold on, Todd 1, she whispered. Mom's got some new friends to help look for you. The fleet moved through space in perfect formation. Some of the alien crews had started calling her Space Mom in their native languages. Hei-yun didn't mind. She had learned long ago that sometimes being a mom meant solving problems no one else could solve, even if those problems involved ending an alien civil war and accidentally becoming an admiral. She just hoped the next system would be less complicated. Though given her luck so far, she doubted it. At least someone had finally brought her something that resembled coffee. It was blue and slightly glowing, but at this point, she wasn't going to be picky. Hei-yun stood at the main desk of the Proxima Systems Central Administration Office, trying to remain calm. Her fleet of alien ships waited in orbit above, while she dealt with something far more challenging than warfare: paperwork. So you're telling me, she said to the green-skinned clerk named Assistant Administrator Du-yun, that I need Form 27B to track a suspicious vessel, but I can't get Form 27B without first filing Form 15C, which requires Form 42A, which needs 3 signatures from the Department of Interstellar Transit. Correct, Du-yun said, adjusting his 7 pairs of glasses. And the Department of Interstellar Transit is closed for their annual meditation retreat. Hei Yun took a deep breath. The blue alien coffee from her new fleet was wearing off. How long is this retreat? 3 standard months. The quantum bracelet on Hei Yun's wrist pulsed with her rising blood pressure. My son was kidnapped and brought through your system. Surely there's an emergency procedure. Oh yes, Du Yun brightened, pulling out another stack of papers. That would be Emergency Form 103X. But first, we need to establish your parental status with Form 89D, verified by the Bureau of Family Relations, which requires... Stop. Hei Yun held up her hand. She looked around the vast office space, filled with hundreds of aliens' filing papers, stamping documents, and moving files from one desk to another in an endless cycle. Show me your organization chart. Du Yun pressed a button on his desk, and a holographic display appeared. It showed the most complex bureaucratic structure Hei Yun had ever seen. Your system is highly inefficient, she said, her scientific mind already analyzing the problems. You have 17 different departments doing the same job, 5 layers of redundant verification, and no central database. Yes, it's wonderful, isn't it? Du Yun said proudly. It takes at least 7 years to process a simple name change request. Hei Yun thought about Ta Wan. Somewhere in this system, while she waited for paperwork, her mom mode activated. Computer, she said into her communicator, connect me to Admiral Bora and Commander Jin. Their faces appeared on her screen. I need your best administrative experts down here. Immediately. 6 hours later, Hei Yun stood before the High Council of Bureaucratic Affairs. She had prepared a presentation. Your current system, she explained, pointing to her holographic display, is like a house where every room is a maze, and you have to solve a puzzle to open each door. My proposed reorganization is more like a house with clear signs, straight hallways, and doors that actually open when you need them. The council members looked scandalized. But the procedures, one of them stammered, will be simplified. Hei Yun pulled up another diagram. Look at this form requesting permission to request a form. It's nonsense. We're going to fix this, and we're going to fix it now. You can't just change centuries of bureaucratic tradition. The head administrator protested. Hei Yun raised an eyebrow. I just ended a 7-year civil war in the Centauri system by getting 2 sides to talk to each other like reasonable beings. Your paperwork doesn't scare me. She turned to Du Yun, who had become her unofficial assistant. Bring up the tracking data for the suspicious vessel we're following. Du Yun, who had quickly adapted to Hei Yun's more efficient methods, pulled up the information immediately. The ship passed through 3 days ago, heading toward the Sirius system. They filed Form 27B under a false company name. You see, Hei Yun turned to the council. Under my new system, we found this information in minutes instead of months. Imagine what else you could accomplish. The council members whispered among themselves. Finally, the head administrator spoke. Your ideas have merit, but changing the system would require... Let me guess, Hei Yun interrupted. Forms. Thousands of them. Hei Yun smiled. It was the same smile she used when Tadawun tried to explain why his room wasn't cleaned. No, here's what's going to happen. I'm declaring an administrative emergency under Section 5, Paragraph 3 of your own regulations, the one about preventing systematic collapse. The council gasped. That regulation hadn't been used in over 3 centuries. But that would give you temporary control of the entire administrative system. The head administrator exclaimed. Exactly. Hei Yun nodded. And my first act will be to implement a new, streamlined organization. My second act will be to find my son. Any questions? There were none. Within days, the Proxima system's bureaucracy transformed. Papers moved efficiently, decisions were made promptly, and citizens no longer aged significantly while waiting for permits. Hei Yun set up new departments, implemented digital systems, and trained staff in what she called common sense procedures. The aliens adapted surprisingly well once they realized they could go home on time instead of working endless overtime. Administrator Park, Du-Yun said one morning, using her new official title. The latest reports show a 600% increase in efficiency. Also, public satisfaction is at an all-time high. And he hesitated. What is it? The staff took a vote. They want to make you permanent head of systems administration. Hye-Yun looked up from her work. Du-Yun, I'm trying to find my son, not run a government. But you're so good at it. He showed her the statistics. You've accomplished more in a week than the previous administration did in a century. Also, he shuffled his feet. We like having a leader who actually gets things done. Hye-Yun sighed. She seemed to be developing a habit of accidentally taking over things. Fine, I accept the position, but I'm doing this remotely once I'd find Taiwan, and we're maintaining the new efficiency standards. The news spread quickly through the system. Citizens celebrated the end of endless paperwork. Her fleet, still in orbit, sent congratulations. Admiral Bora suggested adding bureaucracy tamer to her growing list of titles. Hye-Yun ignored all of this, focusing on the data about the kidnapper's ship. They were definitely headed to the Sirius system, home of the largest corporate conglomerate in this part of space. Du-Yun, she called, prepare my ship, and send a message to the Sirius corporate authority. Tell them. She smiled that Mom's smile again. Tell them the great organizer would like to discuss some irregularities in their filing system. As she prepared to leave, Hye-Yun looked at her growing collection of titles. Admiral of the Combined Centauri Fleet, Head Administrator of the Proxima System, the Great Organizer, and of course, Mom. Computer, she said as she boarded her ship, remind me to update my business cards when this is all over. Her new fleet, now supplemented by Proxima administrative vessels, formed up around her ship. The Sirius system lay ahead, its corporate worlds glittering with artificial light. They think they're so clever, hiding behind their corporate structures, Hye-Yun muttered. Well, they haven't dealt with someone who just reorganized an entire system's bureaucracy. And they definitely haven't dealt with a mom who missed her morning coffee 3 days in a row. Du-Yun, who had insisted on coming along as her administrative advisor, looked worried. Should I prepare the corporate takeover forms? Du-Yun, Hye-Yun said patiently, we're going to teach them about a different kind of hostile takeover. One that doesn't require any forms at all. Her fleet jumped to quantum speed, leaving behind a newly efficient system and a legend of the mom who had conquered bureaucracy itself. Somewhere in the Sirius system, a group of corporate executives were about to learn a valuable lesson. Never kidnap the son of someone who could reorganize an entire government out of sheer maternal frustration. The Sirius Corporate Authority's main office took up an entire space station. Hye-Yun's fleet surrounded it, their ships reflecting the light of 3 suns. Inside the station's main conference room, Hye-Yun sat at one end of a long table. 12 corporate directors sat at the other end, trying to look important. Let me understand this, said Director Ji-Hoo, the head of the board. You're accusing our corporation of kidnapping your son. No, Hye-Yun replied calmly. I have proof that your corporation kidnapped my son. She pressed a button on her tablet. The room's screens lit up with documents, shipping records, and security footage. Would you like to see it alphabetically or chronologically? The directors shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Du-Yun, standing behind Hye-Yun with 7 tablets, smiled slightly. These documents were private corporate records. Another director protested. Yes, they were. Hye-Yun nodded. Until I had my administrative team reorganize your filing system. You really should have better security. Also, your expense reports are a mess. Director Ji-Hoo leaned forward. Dr. Park, you must understand. The artifact your son was studying, it's very valuable to our research division. So valuable that you kidnapped a 16-year-old boy. Hye-Yun's voice could have frozen hydrogen. Tell me, Director, do you have children? Well, yes, but... Then you should understand exactly how bad your situation is. Hei-yun stood up. Now, where is my son? The directors huddled together, whispering. Finally, Ji-hoo spoke. We cannot simply give up such a valuable asset. The artifact. Computer, Hei-yun interrupted. Execute Protocol 1. Alarms blared throughout the station. The directors jumped as their screens filled with red warning messages. What did you do? Ji-hoo demanded. I just started a hostile takeover, Hei-yun explained. A real one. My fleet is currently disabling your defense systems. My administrative team is freezing your accounts. And my quantum technology is shutting down your communications. You can't do this, a director shouted. We have shareholders. Funny you should mention that. Hei-yun smiled as Do-yun handed her a tablet. While you were talking, my team finished analyzing your corporate structure. You've been misleading your shareholders for years. Should I send this report to them? The directors' faces turned pale. But that's not all, Hei-yun continued. Remember how I reorganized your filing system? We found some interesting documents about illegal research, tax evasion, and something very suspicious involving a coffee monopoly. She paused. I'm particularly angry about that last one. Do you know how hard it is to find good coffee in space? This is blackmail. Ji-hoo protested. No, Director. This is parenting. Hei-yun's quantum bracelet glowed. Now, I'll ask one more time. Where is my son? Before they could answer, the station shook. Warning lights flashed. Admiral Park. Admiral Bora's voice came through her communicator. We've detected ships approaching. Corporate security forces. Hei-yun sighed. How many? 3 fleets, Admiral. 3? Hei-yun looked at the directors. Impressive. Do-yun, what's our tactical situation? Do-yun checked his tablets. Our Centauri forces have superior firepower. The Proximan ships have better shields. Also, I've finished processing the corporate takeover forms. We now legally own 51% of their shares. What? The directors shouted together. How? Form 27B, Do-yun explained proudly. The one you used to register the ship that kidnapped young Ta-won. It had a clause about transfer of corporate ownership in cases of criminal activity. You really should read the fine print. Hei-yun's bracelet pulsed. Outside, her fleet moved into defensive positions. Directors, she said, your security forces are about to face a combined fleet led by someone who hasn't had proper coffee in days. More importantly, they're about to face a mom who's tired of corporate games. What would you like me to tell them? The directors looked at their screens, then at each other. Director Ji-hoo slumped in his chair. Research Facility 7, he said quietly. On the 3rd moon. He's in Research Facility 7. Thank you. Hei-yun turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, one more thing. You're all fired. You can't fire us. Ji-hoo stood up. We built this company. Actually, she can, Do-yun said, holding up a tablet. As majority shareholder and newly elected CEO, the voting just finished. By the way, she has full authority. Also, your retirement benefits have been recalculated based on ethical business practices. The directors collapsed into their chairs as Hei-yun and Do-yun left the room. Admiral. Commander Jin's voice came through her communicator. The corporate security fleets are asking for orders. Apparently, they now work for you. Tell them to stand down and dock for administrative review, Hei-yun replied. Do-yun, prepare my ship and send a message to Research Facility 7. What should it say? Hei-yun smiled. Tell them Mom's coming for a parent-teacher conference. As her ship headed toward the 3rd moon, Hei-yun reviewed her situation. In 3 days, she had become an admiral, a head administrator, and now a CEO. All because some corporate executives thought it was a good idea to kidnap her son. Do-yun, she said, remind me to update the corporate policy on kidnapping. Already done, he replied. I've also prepared new guidelines for ethical research, proper coffee distribution, and mandatory parenting classes for all executives. Yun looked at her assistant with pride. You're getting very good at this. I learned from the best, he said, adjusting his glasses. By the way, the shareholders are very happy with the new management. Our stock price has tripled. The research facility came into view, a gleaming structure on the moon's surface. Yun's sensors detected no weapons, but lots of scientific equipment. Life signs, she asked her computer. 27 researchers, 15 security personnel, and 1 teenage human male reading a book in the main laboratory. Yun shook her head. Of course, Ta-Wan would be reading at a time like this. Any resistance expected? She asked of Yun. He checked his tablets. No, Admiral. After watching what you did to their corporate headquarters, the facility director sent a message. They surrender unconditionally and apologize for any inconvenience. Good. Yun stood up. Let's go get my son. Then we need to reorganize this entire corporate structure. I want it running efficiently before dinner time. Yes, Admiral. Du-Yun paused. Should I order some coffee for the reorganization meeting? Du-Yun, Yun said as they headed for the landing bay. Promote yourself to head of strategic planning. That kind of thinking is exactly what this company needs. Behind them, her combined fleet of military, administrative, and corporate ships maintained their formation. On dozens of worlds, thousands of employees waited to see what their new CEO would do next. And in a laboratory on a distant moon, a teenage boy looked up from his book and smiled. He knew that sound of approaching ships. Mom was here. Research Facility 7's main doors opened automatically as Yun approached. The security guard stood at attention, looking nervous. Behind her, Du-Yun carried his tablets, while Admiral Bora and Commander Jin provided an honor guard. Welcome, CEO Park, the facility director said, bowing deeply. We've prepared a full report on our research. Where is my son? Yun interrupted. Main laboratory, 3rd floor, the director replied quickly. He's been teaching the research team about quantum harmonics. Yun stopped. Teaching? Yes, Mom. He's quite brilliant. Our scientists have learned more from him in 3 days than they discovered in 3 years. Yun resumed walking toward the elevator, the others following behind. That doesn't surprise me, but it doesn't excuse kidnapping him. The elevator ride was silent. When the doors opened to the 3rd floor, Yun heard her son's voice coming from the main laboratory. No, you're thinking about quantum resonance all wrong, Ta-Wan was saying. The artifact doesn't generate energy. It harmonizes with existing quantum fields. Here, let me show you. Yun entered the laboratory. Ta-Wan stood at a whiteboard covered in complex equations, explaining something to a group of fascinated scientists. The silver artifact from his room sat on a table nearby, glowing softly. Mom. Ta-Wan smiled when he saw her. You're just in time. I was explaining how the artifact's quantum harmonics interface with consciousness wavelengths. Ta-Wan. Yun crossed the room and hugged her son tightly. Are you all right? Did they hurt you? I'm fine, Mom. Ta-Wan hugged her back. They were actually quite nice once they realized I understood the artifact better than they did. Though their coffee is terrible. That's being addressed, Du-Yun said, making notes on his tablet. Yun looked at the scientists, who were trying to edge toward the door. Stop right there. All of you. They froze. Mom. Ta-Wan said, don't be too hard on them. They made some mistakes, but they're good scientists. Just not very good at asking permission. They kidnapped you, Yun reminded him. True. Ta-Wan nodded. But I knew you'd come for me. And look, he pointed to his equations. I made some amazing discoveries while waiting. The artifact isn't just a power source. It's a key to understanding quantum consciousness itself. Yun looked at her son's excited face, then at the guilty-looking scientists, then at the glowing artifact. She sighed. You're grounded for a month for not telling me about the artifact's full capabilities. Yes, Mom. And you're all fired. she told the scientists. Then she paused and immediately rehired under new contracts with proper research protocols and ethical guidelines. Du Yun. Already preparing the paperwork, Du Yun confirmed. Wait, one scientist said, you're not going to have us arrested. Would you prefer that? He Yun raised an eyebrow. No, new contracts sound perfect. Good. He Yun turned back to her son. Now, explain these equations to me, and tell me why you didn't share your research with your mother, who happens to be a quantum physicist. Well, Ta Wan looked sheepish. I wanted to surprise you for your birthday. I found references to this artifact in some old data files, and I thought if I could understand it, it would make a great present. He Yun looked at the artifact, then at her quantum bracelet. Ta Wan, is this artifact related to my Project Phoenix technology? Kind of. Ta Wan grinned. The artifacts are part of an ancient network. Your quantum tunneling technology accidentally tapped into it. That's why these corporate people got so excited. They detected the resonance between my artifact and your experiments. Admiral Bora stepped forward. The quantum crystals in our system are part of the same network, Ta Wan confirmed. They form a galaxy-wide quantum communication and transportation system. But it only works if everything's in harmony. That's why fighting over the crystals was pointless. He Yun sat down, processing this information. So while looking for you, I accidentally became the leader of the 3 star systems that control the main nodes of the quantum network. Yes. Ta Wan looked proud. Best mom ever. Du Yun's tablets chimed. Speaking of leadership, the shareholders' meeting is in an hour. The Proximan Administrative Council needs your signature on the new trade agreements. And the Centauri fleet commanders want to schedule a strategic planning session. He Yun rubbed her temples. Can't someone else handle all this? I'm a scientist and a mom, not a multi-system administrator. Actually, Ta Wan said, you're perfect for it. The quantum network needs someone who understands both the science and the importance of cooperation. Someone who can make different groups work together. Like a mom, Commander Jin added. Exactly. Ta Wan pointed to his equations again. And with the network properly managed, we could revolutionize space travel, communication, energy production. Fine, He Yun said. But we're doing this as a family project. You're helping me understand this network, young man. Consider it part of your grounding. Yes, Mom. Ta Wan smiled. Can't we stop for proper coffee on the way home? Du Yun. The new corporate coffee division is already being established, Du Yun reported. I've hired the best baristas from 17 worlds. He Yun looked around the laboratory, at her son, safe and excited about science, at her new allies from 3 star systems, at the ancient artifact that had started it all. Well, this isn't how I expected my week to go. How did you expect it to go? Ta Wan asked. I was planning to catch up on research papers and maybe order pizza for dinner. Everyone laughed. Even the nervous scientists managed to chuckle. Instead, He Yun continued, I became an admiral, reformed a bureaucracy, took over a corporation, and found out my son is even smarter than I thought, which is saying something. And you did it all without your morning coffee, Du Yun added. Imagine what you'll accomplish once we fix the coffee situation. He Yun stood up. Let's go home. We have a lot of work to do, systems to organize, and a quantum network to understand. But first, Admiral Bora asked. First, I'm going to have a cup of real coffee and hear my son properly explain why he thought studying an ancient alien artifact in secret was a good idea. Tai Wan gathered his research materials. It's actually a funny story. I'm sure it is, He Yun said, and you'll have plenty of time to tell it during your grounding. As they left the facility, He Yun's combined fleet waited in orbit. Military ships, administrative vessels, and corporate cruisers all working together. 3 star systems looked to her for leadership. A galaxy-wide quantum network waited to be understood. But most importantly, her son was safe. Coffee was being properly distributed throughout space, and the universe had learned a valuable lesson. Never, ever get between a mom and her kid, especially if that mom understands quantum physics.